Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com, now powered by lineups.com. Little rebranding here for one of our websites, but we still have the great betting content up for you on that site, as well as our daily NBA show. I'm Nate Weitzer, your host here, flying solo for a couple days as my co-host Josh Lander is out on a brief paternity leave. So mazel tov to him on the birth of their new child, hopefully. And maybe that takes some of the sting out of this Game 1 loss for the Knicks. We are here breaking down Game 2, Pacers at Knicks, with 4 picks, bringing you a little extra action here from my perspective, although I'm sure Josh would co-sign on some of these picks after seeing what we all saw in Game 1. I'm going to jump right into the pick here. I got Knicks minus 0.5 in the fourth quarter. Not even a big spread here, but I think the Knicks are absolutely a fourth quarter team. A second half team in these playoffs. It's pretty clear, but in particular with the fourth quarter here, like there's two scenarios. Either they're up and this time they do not blow it. They absolutely step on the Pacers' neck because they just saw how a lead can be frittered away, up 16 with 4:30 to go. So absolutely we're dominating that fourth quarter, mind you, with Jalen Brunson on the bench for half the fourth quarter. A little extra rest for the man who has not been able to be stopped by the Pacers, who is just an insane fourth quarter performer. Wound up losing the fourth by 3 thanks to the Aaron Nesmith parade, 6 for 7 from deep in that fourth quarter alone. Just absurd outlier. I still like Nesmith, as we'll get into later, but I don't like him to hit 9 threes, which is a career high, and to just go off like that, which, to be fair, is a lot on Tibbs and the Knicks for how they were guarding him in terms of like just dropping down and daring him to shoot over and over until the game was tied. But look, if they're down at half, like I said, this is a second half team. We saw in that Boston series, of course, they will storm back. You now include the Pacers game and the last 6 against Boston. They're -8 net in the first, +8 net in the second. So pretty stark there, flip of the coin for the Knicks. When you get to the fourth with Brunson leading the way, they have a 128 offensive rating in those games and are +13.5 net. The pace drops to 89 in those Knicks games. So the Knicks are obviously, they're more comfortable in that type of slowdown game than the Pacers, who we saw really sputter to a halt kind of in 2 stints. In the second quarter, after they just erupted at 90% shooting basically for a while, they couldn't get anything going. And then down, the late third into the fourth, where Obi Toppin's missing dunks, and they just can't seem to stop the bleeding. And that a lot of that again was with Brunson not even doing anything. It was because the Knicks are just overpowering them. They just have so much more size. They have a 39% offensive rebounding rate in these fourth quarters in the last 7, as I mentioned. So they just have advantages that I think they'll be able to push here. I think the Pacers, to an extent, a little content with the split here. I know they'll come out looking for the win, but I think the Knicks, far more desperate team with the crowd at their back, should be able to get this done. And I think taking them in the fourth quarter is easier than just taking the -5.5 for the game when you look at that difference and just think about how this might play out. Second pick is Tyrese Halliburton under 9.5 assists, which we had in Game 1, and we had it in hand until he hit that miracle shot to force overtime. Then he got 2 more dimes in overtime to go over. But I'm backing Josh here, who had that in Game 1. He also wanted to add the rebounds, and I said, no, let's add over on the points instead, because I think he's just going to be aggressive going to the basket. That turned out to be more prescient as he had 20 drives, shot 70% on those drives, and only 2 assists on the 10 passes out of those drives. In the regular season, he shot 73% on 13.3 drives against the Knicks, only 2.3 assists on those dimes, and 15 potentials in the regular season against the Knicks led to 9 assists per game, which is obviously seems like it's right on the dividing line, but that's regular season basketball. That's also only 15 potentials for Tyrese Halliburton, who I believe was 3rd or 2nd in the NBA in potentials in general, around 22 to 25 per game in most regular season matchups. And this is the playoffs. Like, assists are just not easy to come by. He actually had 5 of his 11 assists in the first quarter, while Indy shot 90%, while the Miles Turner pick and pop was pretty much just easy money. I think probably 3 of those dimes just on quick pick and pops in the first couple minutes. And the Knicks just erased that action. They were just like, nope, Miles Turner, you are not getting any more shots like that. And they were able to jump that and force Halliburton to be more of a scorer. And a lot of times he was like, sure, I'll take that. I go right to the when the Red Sea parts here and I can finish in the basket. So at the basket. So if you do parlay his over 20.5 points with this under assists, you can get plus 300. If you even just take an alt points line, like 18 points with the under assists, you can still get 2-1 on your money. So that's the way I'm playing it there with about a half unit. It's a good way to play with a lot of these point guards who in the regular season might be sharing the wealth, get everyone involved, but in the playoffs, especially as a series progresses, the Knicks, are going to force him to score, which is what we saw in the playoff series last year as well. So we talk about that, man, Aaron Nesmith. And I think this is not chasing points. I think over 12.5 points, I believe that's what his line was in game one. And I was initially doing research as to why I was going to think like under with the rebounds. I think there was good data to support why he's not going to get a lot of rebounds. And he did only get 2 of 9 rebound chances in game one. But when I looked at how he's been performing lately and shooting, I'm like, this is not an outlier. This is not regression to chase. He's actually developed into a much better shooter than he was last year. And so his efficiency is just way up. I mean, he's at 40% from 3 coming into the series. Obviously, we know what he did in game one, shooting from 3. And now he's averaging 16 and 6 rebounds in the playoffs. He has the 3rd most rebound chances on the team. And is a plus 62 and just pretty indispensable as the main defender on Brunson here. Played 38.5 minutes, which is 3rd on the squad in game one. You might be afraid of the rebounds because he's out of position guarding Brunson, and that's fair. That's why I'm just saying points here. But I think adding 5 rebounds, which is implied over if you just take the rebounds, is not a bad play. If you want to diversify a little bit, go 17.5 points and boards. As far as scoring, like we're not chasing him to just go off for 30 and to take a bunch of contested threes again. But if you look early in that game in the first half, he was open. I don't think the Knicks are going to totally overreact to how he performed in the fourth quarter. I think they're going to be more focused on Halliburton, Siakam, Nembhard, and Turner and stopping that pick and pop action. And the last guy there in that starting unit is Nesmith, who is sometimes open by design, but like I said, seems to have really worked on his craft as a shooter. And just if you read the body language, like he's just confident. When the rest of the Pacers were devolving in those second and third quarters at times, like he was just very steady with his ability to hit a jump shot. And that's something you have to really look for in these road environments. Is just like who's going to be a run stopper, who's going to keep them centered. And then, I mean, he's athletic enough to get to the basket against a Knicks team that doesn't have good rim protection when it's just Cat down there. And in general is kind of like overextending on the other guys I mentioned. So I think one way or another, Nesmith can follow up that game with at least 13 points. I'm surprised that books didn't try to overreact more and see if people would take the cheese here at like 7. I was picturing like a 17-point line after he just looked like a fantastic secondary option for the Pacers there in game one. So for them to open it at 12.5, it'll probably get bet up a little bit, but I think you can play this to 14, maybe 15 points and count on him just trying to stay out of foul trouble is really the big thing if he's going to be the primary Brunson defender. But one more Pacer here is Obi Toppin, 11.5 points and boards. Just opened this line here as I record on Thursday. He's not a primary guy who's going to have a lot of lines up initially, but eventually these should come up. And I saw only 3.5 rebounds. It's way juiced to the over, but he had 10 boards in game one. And that's why he's going to be out on the floor. He's Carlisle's counter for these New York Knicks big lineups where they play Mitch Rob and Cat at the same time, where they were just crushing the Pacers on the glass. Siakam and Turner are like woefully undermanned in their ability to deal with those guys. Miles Turner actually only had a 43% rebound chance rate in that Cleveland series. He, after a big first quarter, just kind of faded away in this game. We're talking 2 points, 1 rebound over 14 minutes after in the second half and overtime for Turner, and only 3 points after the first quarter. Did not hit a 3. Toppin progressively getting more time. He played 11 minutes in the second half and overtime, 6 points, 5 rebounds. So basically getting this line just after halftime, finished with 8 and 10, was a +9. That includes not hitting a three on 3 attempts and blowing a dunk, and the refs blowing what would have been an and one on his final bucket of the game there. So I think he earns a little bit north of 20 minutes here just out of necessity. He's been the best rebounder for the Pacers in terms of rebound chance rate in these playoffs. He's 77%, which is exactly what he did in game one, grabbing 10 of a team high 13 chances. So he's got to be out there. He's physical enough to deal with them. That being Mitch Robb, who's just utterly frustrating Thomas Bryant, who had to try to deal with him, boxing him out throughout that game instance. But Toppin gives you a little bit more as a two-way player than Thomas Bryant. He could match up with Cat, who had a big game instance, and he fits in with what the Pacers want to do in terms of pushing the pace, going the other way. He's obviously gotten up a little bit to face his former team, averaged 9.5, 3.5 in the regular season against the Knicks, shot 55% from both the field and from three. And now we're looking, including the playoffs last year, 9.5 and 4 rebounds in only 18 minutes per game against the Knicks. So give him a little more burn, Carlisle. See what he can do, because you've got to find some answers here. And that is all the time we have for you today. Please like and subscribe to the page so you will see each and every time we put out one of these videos. We'll be back next week with more conference finals action, as well as the NBA finals all the way through the middle of June there. My co-host Josh should be back soon as well. Check out all the new content at lineups.com. And until we see you next, happy betting.